Hi, Henny, how are you? Welcome back to the channel, or if you're new here, I'm Teknikolour. Brindleton Bay, the world that comes with The Sims 4 Cats and Dogs expansion pack, is one of my favorites to build in. This summer, we received the new Grange mudroom kit for the game, and I feel like if you're going to find a mudroom in a build, it's likely going to be in Brindleton Bay. So I set out to build a 3-bedroom house with a mudroom on the sporting space lot in Sable Square. But before we dive into the build, I post tons of Sims 4 builds here on YouTube, so if you enjoy this one, please be sure to like and subscribe. Also, if you're planning on grabbing any Sims packs, you can support me by using my creator code, Teknikolour, at checkout on the EA app. I receive a small commission from EA whenever my code is used at no extra cost to you, which helps me create content like this full time. So I really appreciate it. I don't remember if I had seen a house in real life or while looking online for building inspiration, since I built this way back in August and it's now October. But I was inspired by a real house that had this interesting combination of colors and textures. I had already decided that I'd be using the Grange mudroom kit, but I felt like the inspiration for this particular build was just screaming to be placed in Brindleton Bay. I tend to build on this specific lot, Sporting Space in Sable Square, quite a lot. I think it's because it's in a nice spot in the neighborhood and also feels like it's deeper than it is wide. I seem to prefer lots in that sort of orientation over wider lots. I remember enjoying myself this entire build, but getting really frustrated with the overall shape and how to handle the roofing. I think that part of it was just because the inspiration was kind of different from other builds I've attempted in the past, at least when it came to the roofing, and that threw me off. I actually think I might have cut out a significant portion of the recording from when I was working on the roofing, because I swear I just kept doing the same thing, but somehow thinking it looked different. Anyway, I wanted there to be a bit of an overhang around the building, and for the second floor to also have that same quirkiness that I fell in love with from the inspiration. I really wish that I could remember what specifically inspired this one, but I suspect it might have even been a few different houses combined. One thing from the inspiration that I fell in love with that also felt perfect for this being in Brindleton Bay was the front porch. I remember there being seating outside, and it kind of looked like how one might decorate a screened-in porch or deck, but it was right in the front, fully at the entrance, which kind of reminded me of my grandfather. He'd have these little fold-out like metal patio chairs with the strappy fabric on the seat and backrest. He would pull those out whenever we would visit, and we would just sit on the porch, and it was just really nice. My vision was for something a bit more permanent that you'd leave out year-round. I just liked the idea of sitting out on the porch, maybe enjoying a cup of coffee, waving hello to the neighbors, and people watching. There's literally a dog park across the street, benches in the walking path, no cars on this street. It feels very community oriented, and that just made me gravitate towards this specific lot in this neighborhood. Looking back at this now, it's kind of funny knowing how long it took me working on the overall shape and the roofing, because it's literally a square. I built a square house in Sable Square, and it took me legitimately forever. Honestly, it's the simplest shapes that sometimes throw me off when building. I'm not lying though, I had such a good time working on this one. I'm almost always listening to music when building in The Sims, and since I worked on this one back in August, I was interested to know what I had on in the background. This build, I exclusively listened to Ariana Grande's Eternal Sunshine, Brighter Days Ahead, and a playlist of random One Direction songs. What a mix. Like, why? I mean, I legit was so in the zone and happy while working on this one, so maybe Ariana and 1D are the secret. Who knows? Working on the floor plan of the first floor was quite funny, because I legitimately only knew what I wanted the right side to look like. I wanted you to enter into the living room, and I was either going to add in an open concept sort of mudroom, or the mudroom would just be right behind the house entrance. I knew that behind the living room was going to be a dining room and kitchen. Other than that, I had virtually no idea what I was going to be doing with the entire left side. Then I'd look at the second floor and so clearly have a vision for how I wanted that laid out, but realized it was so much larger than I had thought. So anything I thought about adding to the left side on the first floor felt sort of pointless. Actually, since I'm talking about layout and there's a bit before I start to find my footing in this part of the speed build, maybe I should address the elephant in the room. If you watched last week's video, I made zero mention of it because I was so focused on talking about my thoughts on the new expansion pack. But if you've been to my Twitch streams, I had talked about it in depth. My boyfriend and I rearranged our bedroom. We have a fairly large collection of board games at this point, and you can kind of see where we started behind me over here. It's a little bench thing with storage underneath where we kept our board games. I don't even think everything fit in when we first got that, but I think we thought everything would fit. If you haven't seen what this room looked like before, the bed was not centered under the windows and was actually on this wall here. The bench was actually under this window, and we'd pile up our pillows and plushies there whenever we'd unmake the bed so we could actually sleep. But right between the bench and the wall was this literal high rise made up of board game boxes. It's taken years, but we finally bought another bookshelf to put the overflow board games on. And to make that fit, I thought we should rearrange the bedroom to make better use of the space. And guess what? Not all of our board games fit. But that's why the bed is now under the windows and some other furniture has been moved around. We bought the new bookcase and put it together, and my boyfriend was convinced it was just going to fit where the tower of board games was, but it wouldn't really. And I had already been trying to convince him for days that we should rearrange the room entirely. It wasn't until he had tried to measure again where the bookcase was originally going to go that he didn't think it was going to fit as well as he originally thought. There's also a bunch of outlets and a light switch over there, so it kind of would have been in the way. We've lived in this apartment for almost a decade now, and there's an air conditioner in this window that would blow right on me all night long. And since our apartment is very hot, like 90% of the year, that air conditioner is on practically year round. And I would wake up with these awful headaches or sinus pressure and knew it was the air conditioner, which we do maintain, but you know. I'm also pretty sure that our upstairs neighbor has their bedroom laid out like we have it now. But before, I think I would hear them wake up in the morning and get ready on that side of the room because I assume they'd basically go from the bed to the door, and maybe there was a dresser somewhere here, but they'd be walking directly over our heads. This is all part of apartment living, but this is my first time really living in an apartment and having people living above me. So while my boyfriend Andy would sleep right through it, I'd constantly be woken up by it. Even like 10 years in, I'm somehow still not used to it. Make it make sense. I somehow convinced him that if we move the bed here under the windows, we'd also gain way more wall space and therefore could fit the bookcase easily in here. I was right, but somehow I'd not realized that the time to put this plan into motion was the weekend before release week of Adventure Awaits. And our bedroom, obviously, is also my office. So I didn't want it looking all messy while I'm streaming the new pack in early access. So we had to get everything done and quickly because we just had that weekend to do it. That's why overnight the background here changed dramatically. And let me tell ya, I joke that I'm eternally 23. I was born on the 23rd, and it's a big number for me. And I'm now further from 23 years old than I'd like to admit. Plus, I play The Sims all the time, where you literally just click on furniture and move it wherever you like. But let me tell ya, moving furniture around in real life, especially having been 23 for quite a few years, is a lot harder than you'd think it is. We were basically wiped out. And then with release week, I was a zombie until the following weekend. But anyways, back to the build. I did end up putting a little mudroom right behind the entrance to the house, so it's close by the front door, but just around the corner. I was also planning on putting a bathroom in the back near the kitchen, but forgot about that while building the mudroom and added a little half bath right in front of the house there. Then I finally decided what to make of the entire left half of this floor. I added a bedroom with an ensuite bathroom for grandma. I wanted this house to have room for kids, and since the house is so large, it makes sense that there be a space on the first floor for grandparents. This might just be a thing for me, but I also think that the horse ranch bed feels very grandmother coded. Does that make sense to anyone else? I feel like it's a very cute bed, but it feels like it's a grandma's bed. Actually, I think it would be really fun to do a build where I challenge myself to reimagine certain objects that I think are so very specific to one style or age group or whatever. I put a little bit of a hold on grandma's bathroom once I gave myself a general idea of how I wanted her space to be laid out to jump back into the kitchen. I really like building kitchens where there's a sort of window backsplash. It lets light into the space and it helps to make it feel a bit more airy, in my opinion. No matter what I did though, the windows on the back wall of the kitchen just didn't look right. So after a lot of trial and error, I took a chance and decided to ignore my initial instinct of adding a little breakfast table next to the cabinets and put 2 counters in that little bump out area next to the fridge. Then there was just enough room for a door to the backyard, which makes more sense here than anywhere else I could have put it. Legitimately, that's all I needed to do for this room to start falling into place and looking more finished. I don't know why I build like this, but it's almost like I need to find the bones of a space before I feel like it's there. Kind of like when I was a kid, there were these magic marker coloring books or whatever. I remember we went camping as a family, and I had one of them that was the Muppets themed, and you'd see the outlines similar to a typical coloring book, but you just use this one marker that changed color depending on where you were coloring in. Do they still make these? I remember as a kid thinking that it was the coolest thing ever, and honestly, as an adult, I still don't understand how it worked. Anyway, sometimes I feel like when I'm building in The Sims, it kind of works like that. Like, I'm revealing the art by moving items into place, and instead of sticking to that page or room, I move to the next one and then come back and finish it off later. Why do I build this way? When working on a speed build video, it's legitimately infuriating because how do I break this up into sections and then talk about it? That's why this video might feel a bit all over the place because it is. The dining room was really fun to work on because I used furniture that I don't think I use very often, if at all. I tend to build a lot with this light colored wood in a lot of my builds, especially those in Brindleton Bay, which is kind of funny because it's not my personal style at all. I much prefer darker woods and colors in general. The chairs and the table here, though, just feel so comforting to me. I also think that, for whatever reason, I was gravitating towards a style for this build, at least for the interior, that feels more bland or millennial gray or whatever. The majority of my builds, I think, I tend to use a lot more color. Again, I move on before finishing off a room, but this time to really start decorating another. So back into grandmother's room we go. It took me a little bit to settle on which television to give her, and I think the little one I went with feels very appropriate because I can see grandma not really using it and just having it in case she wanted to retreat to her room and watch like the news or a movie by herself. I also gave this room a bit more of the horse ranch treatment and stuck with blues and yellows for the overall color scheme. Paired with the light wood, it just looks so cozy and cohesive. Like, the light wood helps to ground this room as part of the home, but these specific colors and styling give it distinction as someone else's space. Back in the living room, you can see it's basically devoid of all color and just white. I swear, I add in a little dollop of color later on, but around this point of the build, we're just going in and adding some details and decor to help add more character, which feels like a great time to share about what's going on in my life lately. Recently, I launched on my Ko-fi a book club, and it's been a ton of fun, but this month I'm really behind on our readings. We're somehow halfway through October, and I'm literally just halfway through this month's book. I think because we rearranged our bedroom that I felt kind of inspired to give some attention to my old Kindle. So I've actually been reading on that lately instead of doing an audiobook like I normally would. At bedtime, Andy and I pop my phone into this little holder and watch TikToks until one of us gets sleepy. Usually him, and then I play games or scroll mindlessly on my own until I get tired. I had not been sleeping well really at all, probably connected in some way. Well, now we watch TikTok a little less, and I switch to reading on my Kindle until I start to feel drowsy. And I think I find myself getting tired sooner and sleeping through the night more, or at least sleeping better. And really, the whole reason I started this book club was so I'd get more reading in. I feel like I'm always excited at the beginning of the year to get a ton of books checked off my list. And then it's the end of the year and I've read like a book. So my community kind of inspired me to do this. And I mean, we're only on our second book, but I'm loving it so far. So thank you if you contributed towards the tech reading more encouragement. This book we're reading this month is actually perfect for October because it's Final Girls by Riley Sager. And it's essentially about the horror film trope of the surviving girl, final girl, at the end of the movie. So for the season, it's perfectly spooky. And the weather here in New York City, especially with this nor'easter, has brought the temperature down so it's chilly and rainy, and it's just been the best. We've been sleeping with the windows open, and with that weather, it feels very autumnal. And I stayed up so late the other night when I started reading this book because I just couldn't put it down. Plus, I think a lot of New York City apartments can be a bit on the warmer side. For instance, growing up, my grandmother's apartment always felt like a sauna because the heat would come up in the colder months and it'd just end up being so hot. Like Christmas was spent in shorts, I think. And I'm pretty sure my parents or my aunt and uncle would try to like stealthily turn on her air conditioner without her noticing. But my apartment also gets a ton of sun, so it's nice to be bright and cheery, but it's hot all year round. The only time it really gets comfortable in here is when it's like below freezing outside. Right now with the windows open, it's been nice, but can still randomly warm up and all of a sudden you're sweating again. Plus, we usually try to throw a Halloween party with our friends every year, and the fact that the 31st is rapidly gaining on us is stressing me out. I don't even have any idea of what I would do for a costume this year, so let me know if you have any ideas. Andy and I also usually travel to this farm right before Halloween. They have the typical stuff like corn maze, pumpkin picking, all that. But we also usually look at a couple of the nearby shops, a lot of antique sort of stuff or seasonal decor. I'm really looking forward to that. Actually, my parents just planned a short trip of their own to do something similar. And then my mom wasn't feeling well and they had to cancel. Andy and I were going to be staying at their place to watch their dog, who is utterly adorable and has the biggest personality. But that all changed since they ended up staying home. I mostly just hung out with my dad for the day, which was really nice. He's also really into TV and film and has great recommendations to share every time. We also caught up on a few episodes of a show he got me into, I think when I was staying over last Christmas, called Madame Blanc. It was fun to catch up on a few episodes and just hang out and chat. Back to the build though, it's kind of interesting to me how you can do a bit of decorating around and just add some clutter, then plop down a rug and paint the walls and floor, and all of a sudden, this room that looked so unfinished is complete. The second floor came together so much easier. I remember once I knew where the staircase was going to be, the upstairs floor plan was so obvious to me. Sometimes I think I can spend a little bit of time trying to figure out how to wrap a hallway or whatever around the stairs. How do I fit the rooms that I need or want? Like that sort of thing. This time, it was just so clearly there for me that I had almost no trouble just getting to work. I say almost no trouble, I think because I had wanted that big picture window at the front of the stairs to be part of a bedroom. Instead, though, it turned into a cute little landing space that doubles as a library and office. I think the best thing I did for this landing space was deciding to open up the staircase itself to add a railing and fencing. You'll see later on that this space ends up getting opened up even more, which is great because it lets in more light and feels less cramped. I don't think I typically build staircases and hallways like this, where the hall is parallel to the staircase, but this setup worked beautifully. You can also see that I've kind of walled off a couple of different rooms already, making space for 2 bedrooms and 2 bathrooms. The landing, though, might be one of my favorite aspects of this build. The bookcase tucked in by the bathroom, the little office area in the little bump out, so it's kind of private while still being open to the rest of the space. Plus, with the staircase opened up like this, with the frames on the wall across, perfect for family gameplay. Also, as someone who legitimately plays The Sims with a legacy challenge and focuses on family in my gameplay, you think I would remember to add more things into my builds like frames and take tons of photos, but I almost always forget. So I love adding these reminders in here, so if you ever play in my builds, I hope it encourages you to take advantage of the photos and frames because, again, I always forget to. The primary bedroom ended up a little larger than I had anticipated, so they also have their own little sitting room space included. This room was more awkward to deal with because of the shape of the house, and roofing making it so I couldn't include a larger window. However, the smaller windows going across this wall still bring in light and helps give a little bit of privacy to the homeowner. I know, privacy isn't really a thing in The Sims, but still. I figured for the primary bedroom, it'd make sense to keep the light wood and opted for more of a green palette. I think this room uses cats and dogs, horse ranch, for rent, and growing together in addition to the Grange mudroom kit. At least for the majority of the furniture. These packs all weirdly have great synergy together in my opinion. The second, or third technically, bedroom is meant for a kid, or more specifically an older one like a teen. I opted for a completely different color palette and style here to, like grandma's room, add some distinction from the rest of the house. A lot of dark browns, blues, and blacks are used throughout this room. Then, I kind of finished off this floor with a cute little runner in the hallway. I think that's kind of funny because I almost never use the runners in the game. I think a lot of them are too loud, or they just use a particular style or pattern that won't work in my own personal builds. I wish we had more options for runners, and especially the types of modular runners like the ones I think from vampires. As for the rest of the build itself, I wanted to add in a deck and backyard, and this took an astronomical amount of time. I'm not sure why, but it felt like everything I was trying just looked a little off. So you'll see me try to essentially do the same thing many times in slightly different ways until we settle on the right deck. I'm like the Goldilocks of Sims building. I think this yard was actually quite fun to work on, despite the fact it took me such a long time to get it right. I wanted there to be a space for a dog and to play in the grass, then a bit of a pathway, including to the front of the house to pull garbage to the curb. Again, not a thing in the game, but is in real life. And then a lovely little flower garden. I've been using the little curved rock formation from Horse Ranch a lot for my flower beds. I think it works as a great border for little areas like this. And if you don't have Horse Ranch, I think they added this or one similar to it in the debug of other packs. I think Enchanted by Nature. So if you're a fairy person but not a horse person, you're in luck. I also surprised myself a bit with this backyard because I decided to add in a hot tub. Usually, if I'm going to add in any sort of water feature, it's almost always a pool. I think a lot of my builds come with a pool, but very few include hot tubs. I think, given this space, it called more for a hot tub than a pool, mostly because the build itself takes up a huge portion of the lot. I also used those little rock path items from Riviera Retreat to sort of provide a different style of pathway to the other side of the yard. This way, we've got something more manicured with the paving and then these stepping stones. I think the final touches here were really nice too. I included some patio furniture to the porch and even used a little pet basket bed that I made a while back and is available as a room on the gallery. It says it uses only cats and dogs, but the basket itself is from Jungle Adventure, so you will need that for the basket to show up. But it fits in perfectly. And that's the entire speed build. So let's open up the game and I can give a quick tour. So here we are in the game on the sporting space lot in Sable Square. And I just think that this build is quite possibly one of my favorites. There's not like a ton to it, but I think it's really cute. And I just love the curb appeal. Showing a quick little aerial shot here, you have the front porch, and then you just go through the front door and you are entered into this lovely living room. You got a fireplace, a big screen TV, and then right over here, just right around the corner, is the mudroom, and there's a little half bath right on this floor for anyone to use. Then through this archway, you have the dining room. And then through this archway, you have this very big kitchen and a little doorway to get out into the deck and backyard. There is, of course, a door over here right before you get to the stairs, and it leads to the grandma's room. And she's got her ensuite bathroom as well. And then up the stairs, you have this nice big landing hallway space. And it's open here so you can see that there are the picture frames to use. You've got the little desk over here. You have the bookshelf, and then of course the family bathroom over here. And then back here, you have the primary bedroom and their bathroom as well. And then on the other side is that last bedroom, which is just like perfect for a teen. And that, my friends, is the entire build. If you'd like to add this build to your game, you can grab it off the gallery using my EA ID, Teknikolour. If you enjoyed this build, please drop me a like. If you want to see more builds like this in the future, don't forget to subscribe. And if you want even more Sims content, consider dropping me a follow over on Twitch. I play my pack-based Legacy Challenge every Thursday, and thanks to the EA Creator Network, I'm able to check out new Sims releases and occasionally run giveaways. Planning on picking up cats and dogs or the Grange Mudroom kit? Please consider using my creator code, Teknikolour, at checkout on the EA app. It's free for you and supports the channel. Plus, my code can now be used on so many other EA titles. Actually, from now until November 15th, you can use my code when purchasing an EA Play Pro annual subscription on the EA app, and you'll receive a 16% discount. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you in the next video. Bye-bye.